Someone is notably missing. Producer Ted isn't here today.
Is there anything in my teeth?
Is there a chia seed problem?
Because Ted is our producer and editor, and he dropped our YouTube video. And in the last episode, I have a chia seed stuck in my teeth.
It wasn't just a chia seed, honey. It was
a chia seed.
That was like, I was gonna color one of my teeth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In solidarity. How did no one notice that? We were all looking at each other. And no one noticed it.
Eyes are up here.
So Ted is on administrative leave since he didn't catch that during editing, and he still dropped the video. So administrative leave without pay. And since we talked about accountability last time, I hope he's really thinking about his actions, because I'm very disappointed in him.
Rip his TV off his wall, just like he did. Do not take his phone.
Yep.
But here's the other thing, right? I mean, you can't blame the man. So much amazing stuff to look at with you. How could he notice one simple flaw? I mean, he's only human. Do you think this is a good defense as his labor rep?
Yeah, he's going to have representation, and we're going to have like a whole process, a disciplinary process with mediation. And
well, come on. I mean, in his defense, we did talk about how neither of us gets embarrassed. We're like, oh, okay.
That's why I'm faux ragey about it, because I literally walked through the living room and Chris is like, "What is on your teeth?" And I stopped and I just started laughing. I'm like, "That, my friend, is a chia seed from my yogurt. I add chia seeds to add a little more fiber to yogurt." And I just started laughing. I thought, good thing most of our listeners listen to our pod and don't watch it.
Well, they're going to watch now.
The Hollow Bunny. And we all feel hollow sometimes.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Hollow Bunny Leadership Podcast. I'm Kristen Zeman, and I am here with my steady and sharp co-host, Sylvia Moyer. We are former police chiefs, but this podcast is not just for cops. No, it's for anyone is interested in life and leadership and oral hygiene, and particularly the lessons that we've learned about all of it. So today, Syl, we are wrestling with a question that no leader really likes to answer, and that is, when is it time to go? I don't know about you, but I have seen leaders cling to power for far too long. Politicians, police chiefs, CEOs, it's not about purpose. It's about a lot of things. And I think that we need to dig into what drives people to overstay their leadership welcome, and how we can recognize if maybe you might be part of the problem. Not you.
You generally,
you,
or
as in you listeners, you hollow bunnies.
Shitballs. Oh, okay. So
let's do the confrontational today.
Confrontational combative. I kind of like the regime.
Yeah, I know. It suits me. It's this caregiver. I'm taking care of my invalid spouse, and
she's a fantastic.
I'm sorry, she's handy capable.
Did you make that shit up?
No.
Okay. All right. So we acknowledge all that. Let's just say this at the front end. Some people have stories, things that keep them in places. There are things that we don't know. I mean, someone, it may be a financial necessity. Some, it may be to get to a certain place in terms of retirement. Some people have certain things they want to accomplish. Let's acknowledge all those, and then let's start talking about the real self-assessment that's necessary to determine when it's the right time to go, because everyone has a shelf life. And you and I have talked about this. We don't want to be like that jug of milk that's slightly curdling. We're not really sure. We're like, taste this. Is this still good? Is it bad?
Yeah.
So we acknowledge all the reasons that people stay.
But I want to get into those reasons, because I don't think people realize. I mean, just look at present-day politicians. I think that people look at them and go, "What are you doing here? You're 842 years old. Why are you still here?"
Caring for a what would you call it? A handicapable kid or a family member.
All the more reason to leave your profession and focus on your family. So this isn't about ageism, although It might be a little bit, because there is, you said it yourself, there's a shelf life to all of us. We are all going to get to that place in time in our lives where we are not as physically and mentally agile. So notwithstanding that, I mean, when you have some deficiencies that people notice, I mean, listen, to me, that's a no-brainer. Your team, that's where you have a team of truth tellers and people who care about you to say, hey, I think it's time to step down because your capacity is dwindling. You have to have, it's like taking the keys away from grandma. You know, you can't drive anymore because you're running over people, right? So so like notwithstanding a cognitive decline, why do people leave? Why do people stay? You said the first one, a financial anchor.
Yeah. Ego. Let's just throw them out. Ego.
Yeah, an identity crisis, and delving down into financial first, because that's the easiest. That is like, and in our profession, we're driven and tethered by pensions. So we have this end goal in mind. And for me, I left 3 years before I could collect my pension, which was like jumping and free falling, jumping without a net. But I hear people say, I have to stay until I can collect this pension, or I can't afford to leave because my kids are still in college. The loss aversion equation where, we fear losing what we already have more than we value potential gains. But I think those are important and those are no-brainers, right? But you mentioned ego. I mean, let's go there. Leaders fall in love with their own reflections.
No doubt. And you and I both know that everyone answers the phone when you're a chief and you call. The day after you're not a chief, you don't have access. You don't have a driver. You don't have people answering the phone. You don't have folks that really respond in a timely fashion. There's access. We'll just say there's access that you get by being a person in a position of authority. Yeah. So some of that's ego. Right?
It feels good. Being the face of the organization becomes addictive. And you're right. The higher rank or title that you achieve, the more people, exactly right, nod their heads at you and laugh at your jokes and answer the phone and all of the things. And that becomes, I think it becomes addictive. So there is most certainly something there. There's a there.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, I'm going to try to provide the proper attribution. I believe it was Heifetz and Linsky in Leadership on the Line, where they offered that take praise and condemnation. Don't take it personally. Mm-hmm. And praise can be intoxicating. Mm-hmm. And one of the real purposeful intentions in the leadership school in California, the Sergeant's Leadership School, and reading that book and exploring it was, how do you take praise? How do you take praise? What do you do with it? And the intention is, you take it in as kind of a piece to affirm perhaps some action. Should always criticize it, but it should go in. And I have like this thing where it goes in and it goes right to my feet to keep me standing in virtue, standing in the values that kind of got me to the point of the praise. But then, I don't know, we could go down that path and talk about that ad nauseum, but we won't. Yeah. Let's just acknowledge it.
Yeah, I think because I think that's another no-brainer, is that it just becomes addictive. Yeah. And there's also some research, insight, and studies in succession, leadership succession, show that there's something called the founders syndrome, where, and that's not the case for everyone, but it's the idea where leaders believe that the success of the organization hinges on them, and they resist handing over control even when it's time. And that's from the Harvard Business Review. So I thought that was interesting, is that responsibility, which is, it's on one hand, it's really good that you have that responsibility or that idea that everything hinges on you, because that is the mindset of a leader, is that it may not be my fault, but I am responsible, no matter, for praise everyone else when good things happen, when bad things happen, it's my fault. So on one hand, I like that idea, but on the other hand, when you take it to the extreme and you have that idea that no one can do the job that you do in holding up the organization, well, then that's the ego trap as well.
Sure. So I recall in California, we have these learning domains at the Basic Academy. And they added a new one. I was a detective at the time, I think, or a field training officer, and I was training at the academy. And I was training in physical training, in crowd and riot control, and some patrol stuff, right? And they said, hey, we're starting this new learning domain called culture diversity. And I said, oh, that's awesome. They said, we want you to be on the team that develops the curriculum here in California. I said, what? Like, what do I know about anything? Anyway, kind of fast forward, and the learning domain came out. One of my teaching partners and I taught the class for quite a few years in the academy in a way that was like really, really enriching for us, and their students reported that they got a lot out of it.
Okay.
Well, trying to bring someone in to teach that class was painful. I was a sergeant teaching it, and then as a lieutenant teaching it, and nobody would take it over. So I felt this responsibility. Some people believed that it was like the founder's syndrome that you just described, that I just couldn't let go of it. And so it was a real struggle for me to assess, am I holding on to this because of some ego thing that I think it performs well and it has a lasting impact? Or am I doing it really because no one's ready to step in? And when I just finally said, irrespective of the reasoning that I'm clinging to this thing in addition to my other duties, I'm going to step away from it in full, and it's going to be okay. And you know what?
It was.
It was.
Yeah.
It was okay.
So that's interesting because I have heard people use that as an excuse, as nobody wants this job, so I have to keep it. Not that I'm suggesting that you use that as an excuse, but it's like,
Yeah, who knows?
there are situations where truly no one else is going to step up, and so you have to
Yeah.
remain in the role. But I think that's probably pretty, I mean, that's a very slim percentage. I think we're talking not about those individuals who genuinely are staying because they don't have someone to, there's no bench, right? But I'm talking about the people who take up the spot, even when
Yeah.
there are
Look,
perfectly-
from my dead cold hand.
yeah, when there are capable people that can take over. So
Sure.
I think the biggest issue that people grapple with, aside from ego, and that's hard for people to admit, by the way, but I think it's about identity. I mean, I know that when I left policing, I went through an existential identity crisis in a profession for 30 years, and then walking away and not having the badge and the uniform and the title, you know, and the rank and all of it. And I was like, this is who I am. And so it felt like I was like disappearing. And so that role becomes the core part of your sense of self. So you really have to hold up a mirror there and say, you know, who am I beyond this identity, beyond this label, beyond this title? And that's where I see people who stay far too long because their entire identity is wrapped up in what they do. And then you sprinkle the ego and all of the other stuff, especially if it's a prestigious position. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, you sprinkle the ego, you sprinkle addiction to power and money, finances.
Yeah.
Okay, here's what I have to say about that. I agree with you. And Colin Powell offered in the great book by Oren Harari about the 21 leadership secrets of Colin Powell, he talked about this. And this is the differentiation of self and role. And this is a piece that I think we've lightly touched on before, but every person listening here needs to really sit in reflection and consider this. Self and role, as Colin Powell argued, says, look, you should distinguish the self from the role being police chief, CEO, commander, whatever the role is. Because when the role goes, the self should still exist. And that is super meaningful. It is meaningful and purposeful because we have a responsibility to distinguish between self and role. And what you described is kind of like this, the body wants homeostasis, right? And any significant change like leaving your police chief job creates some disequilibrium. And your body wants to get back to normal for all the reasons that we've talked about.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I really believe that kind of as the great Stoics, as Marcus Aurelius taught us, we have this great long period of apprenticeship, right? And then we seek this mastery. And once we're in a position where we have enough mastery to achieve the position, like you're a police chief, you've achieved some mastery. Some people take that and go into a light, easy, complacent way of being just to keep the job. You consistently pushed up against it and sought to continue your mastery as an enduring, lifelong effort, which I would agree is the healthiest. Here's the thing. You have to get to a place of wisdom to recognize that self and role are different.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a married person and all of a sudden you're sprung like, hey, I don't want to be with you anymore, your identity is gone. Like that role as a spouse, gone,
Yeah.
right? You're a police chief and you retire or you are fired or whatever. That role is gone. The self exists. And that's where agency is so important, because agency helps direct the course of our life and gives us an ability and really the capacity for understanding we are in charge of our life with resilience and choice. I'm going to pause there and let's pick that part a little bit, because I think that's super resonant to get to that place of self and role.
Yeah, I do too. But I think that's what the part is that people are missing. To me, it's this level of introspection that people don't have. And
What do you mean?
meaning that thing that you call agency is
Yeah.
control over, the way that I define agency is control over my destiny, having control
Yeah.
over my life.
Yes.
And so you brought up the wisdom that comes with when you have served in a career. And the book that helped me through my transition was called Strength to Strength.
What?
And The Second Mountain. Both of those books
Oh.
talk about, in two different ways, but about crystallized intelligence and all of the things. And I love the metaphor of the second mountain, which is, on that first mountain, you collect
David Brooks.
Yes, that's David Brooks, and then there's Arthur Brooks, who is the author of Strength to Strength. But they're both remarkable books. Odd that they have the same last name. But what he talks about is this crystallized intelligence that you gather all of this wisdom through your years of service, and then you must detach. But you have to have the introspection to detach, meaning moving away from that midlife transition or that identity crisis and grappling that loss of meaning that defines you in your career. And you take what you have learned, that crystallized intelligence, which is really wisdom, and you apply it to something deeper and more meaningful. So you use what you've learned and you contribute to the world. So we're getting ahead of ourselves here, because that's what people on the other side have recognized. What I'm trying to figure out is what keeps people from holding the mirror up. And there's even another notion. We've talked about identity, we've talked about ego, we've talked about financial, but there's also and this is, I wonder if this is part of ego, but it's the job isn't done fallacy. There's more to do. Well, no shit. There always is more to do.
Oh shit.
True legacy is not about finishing the job. It's about building others up to continue the job. And if you can't continue without you, then that was never leadership to begin with.
100%. I say uh-oh, and you looked scared. Were you scared?
Yeah, I was.
Uh-oh, because that's like no shit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And because what it does is it challenges us. I mean, on the other side, I think informs those that are in.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. So
Yeah.
on the other side is that we have built a capacity to be adaptable to change and conflict. We've built that capacity. We now, at this point in our careers, get to reflect on it, right?
Yeah.
But this informs the people that are in the positions, how to assess when they're done. So, okay. So I want to reinforce this. So you picked part, the job is never done. Let's just acknowledge, well, no shit.
Mm-hmm.
The job's never done. There's always going to be stuff. The other one that you rose is addiction to power, addiction to the financial. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was, what did you call it? It was the, help a sister out.
The job's not done fallacy, the identity crisis, the ego, the financial aspect. Those were the ones we talked about.
Those are all really important, but there's also this one about it's not the right time.
Yeah.
Right?
When the work's not done. Right. I mean, that's really, or the founders.
Founders. That's the one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So
Okay.
yeah, the founders syndrome,
That
where
is
they
a
feel like they
big
can't
deal.
let go. It's control. That's control.
Okay. Don't you think all of that swirls around psychology? All of it?
Absolutely. I think there's probably a little piece of all of this. And I mean, ego plays a part. There's also so many different layers here of people who choose not to leave. So I understand the reasons that people don't leave. Where I get stuck is how they don't know it. Like, let me tell you my story. When I walked out, it was June of 2021, and I was in a waiting room waiting for my spouse to come out of an MRI. And I was just sitting there waiting, and it washed over me. I was reflecting on my career, on my life. And I was thinking, okay, I became the chief in 2016. And then we had, a mass shooting in 2019, and then a pandemic in 2020, and then civil unrest in 2020, at the end of 2020. And it was like 3 years of being a punching bag. And I remember finally, when all the dust settled, in the middle of 2021, I just knew it was time to go. My soul had been crushed, and I just couldn't fight any longer. I was fighting. I felt like everybody had turned against us. I was fighting for the profession, and I just felt like I was spent, and I needed to jump, even if it was without a net. But it just came over me, and I knew that they needed someone in there with more energy than I could give them, because I just felt defeated. And so that's what I mean. It's like I held up the mirror. I didn't like what I saw or who I saw as a leader, and I knew I could give them better. And I'm not suggesting that I'm the most introspective person, but it's like that mirror helped me see that, I could give them better by leaving.
Wow. Well, wow. You did amazing work during really tough times, right? No doubt. And what you're saying is what I think they call in psychology, right? It was normal to have that response. Sounds like you asked yourself the question, what do I have left to give to the profession? Mm-hmm. And in that moment, you answered, I've given all that I can give and all that I want to give. And you were faced with some introspection that gave rise to this knowing that you were done. Is that what you're describing?
Yeah. And I wasn't necessarily done with the profession. No. I don't think. I just knew that
you were done there.
I was done. It was just time, and it was painful. It felt like, it was like and nothing was wrong, by the way. Nothing, everything had, we had come, the department was thriving. The officers were thriving. I just felt like I just was deflated. My soul was harmed, and I needed to walk away. And I actually thought, I'll get another chief's job somewhere. And, that didn't pan out. I put in for Chicago. I put in for Nashville. I didn't get the jobs that I put in for. And as it turned out, that turned out to be a gift, but I knew that I was done in that organization. So it's not, just the profession. And, and what I'm doing now fulfills me just as much, if not more, than what I was doing. And I have the freedom on top of it. But I guess what I want to delve into is what keeps people when everyone else is looking at them. And we know this. So we see leaders. We currently know leaders who are in their profession, and everyone around them is like, they have overstayed their welcome. How come the only one who doesn't see it is the person sitting in the chair?
I wish I had an easy answer to that. I think part of it is a pursuit of self-mastery. It is knowing self. It is taking time to be introspective, like you just described during the MRI. I think they don't work at their leadership craft with purpose and intention, because if they were, they'd ask themselves some questions like, am I the best person for the job right now? Mm-hmm. Do I have energy left to give? Am I leading the team strategically to advance the organization? They'll ask themselves questions like, what truths am I missing? What truths are not being told to me?
Yeah.
And I think
that's a big piece. Don't you think people who you surround yourself with, don't you think that that's a big deal if you allow them to be your truth tellers?
Yes. What do the stakeholders in my organization, what do they think of the direction the organization's going? How do they feel as they carry out their work? I just think that is part of the leadership necessity. It is part of when you are in leadership, you have to consistently challenge your role. Mm-hmm. And you just demonstrated that you do that. I did that where I was. I'm doing that now. Am I in some way an impediment to the talent in the organization? And if I stay, I think I could add value because I certainly have a lot of energy left to give. But if I stay, am I impeding the talent ladder for folks?
You're going to be so proud of me right now.
I am?
Yeah, I just thought of a sports analogy.
Holy shit. Hold on to the rails.
Buckle up, Sylvia. So I just got done watching the newest series of Quarterback, and Kirk Cousins, so I forget what team he's on now, but anyway, he's a quarterback. He's a quarterback.
Name a team that's not the Chiefs or the Bears.
He was in Washington, and now he is
Commanders.
Yes, and now he left to go. But anyway, it doesn't matter. But he's not performing well. But he's like, I'm going to fight through this. And they also drafted a brand new quarterback that is his backup quarterback, who is full of talent, but who's been sitting on the bench for so long. But Cousins didn't want to give up his role, and so he kept fighting through all of his injuries. And who can know if this backup quarterback can succeed in the way that he can? But he couldn't give up his position, and finally, because in fact he even grappled with it, but then decided, no, I'm staying here. And then the head coaches had to make the decision. So I was like, this is a lot like leadership, is that this whole succession plan. Succession isn't betrayal. If you've done it right, then your departure should feel seamless. And I think the great ones aren't the ones who stick around. I think the great ones are the ones who leave behind a system that thrives in their absence, and groom other people to take their place, and have the wherewithal to say, it's time. I am not performing at my peak, and it's time to bring up this backup quarterback. Are you so proud of me right now? Are you so proud of me right now?
I peed a little for sure. And I am so excited because he's with the Falcons, and Michael Penix is the new kid. He came in a couple of years ago. I think he was in the national championship, by the way. He came in, he was drafted by the Falcons. Here's something I want to say. Yes, there's a time when you got to go because the leadership funnel is clogged up by you. However, what if this young quarterback just needs a season or two, right? And let's just say he needs a season or two. The thing that Kirk Cousins needs to do, the thing that the leader needs to do, right, is to say, look, some people may not think that Michael Penix is ready, but he's ready. Put him in the game. He's got this. And in order for him to achieve, maybe Kirk Cousins needs to go away, to just leave. Maybe he takes a different role on the sidelines to be there for the kid. The thing is, it's not perfect and ideal. Every situation isn't the same.
I know.
But there's an assessment piece that I have to agree with you. I consistently appreciate those that tap out earlier than perhaps most people think is reasonable.
Yeah, kind of goes with everything. It's like, knowing when to walk away from, a sitcom when it's at its height, knowing when to walk away from the organization when it's flourishing instead of waiting for it to start circling the drain. I think there is a grace in knowing when to take an exit. And I think more people need to think about that. I mean, and you've talked a lot about agency. So I think that's maybe a good transition into, this is where the introspection comes in, is having the control over your own life to make your own decisions on your terms and not getting pushed out by someone else.
Right. And agency means what you talked about. It also means the capacity to make meaning of the environment, right? And to own the direction of one's life, right? So I think there's a real opportunity for leaders that are listening and are thinking, okay, my plan was, let's just use an example. My plan was 5 years. Okay, so here this person sitting in a spot, 5 years. There was somebody in place that was rumored to be getting ready. And what if a person says at 3 years, you know what, physically I've got some stuff going on that I can't do the job the way that the job deserves. And at the same time, this person's more ready than they think they are, and the organization will flourish when that leader leaves. So for instance, I think there's a real opportunity for some people that are struggling with this decision. If there are real key programs, projects, advancements that are in the near future, and you're kind of thinking about when you leave, why not tee them up? The project, the advancement, whatever. Why not get it ready and then get it set for the next administration to then take it? So like you set it up, you get the people ready, you probably pull back the curtain a little bit on a few things, and then you depart, And then the next group gets to advance those things that are already kind of in the works. There's a real psychological advantage for somebody who's struggling with founder, with the job's not done, and the other things that we talked about, to take perhaps that approach.
Yeah, it's like we these succession plans is like we see who the heir apparents are. The cream rises to the top, and
Sure.
then sometimes we recognize that, and we plant them, in this tree, in a tree metaphor, we plant them, but then we block the sun, so they can't grow. And we just have to step aside, and it's like we're just causing shade for them, and we can say, oh sure, I've got people behind me, but we're not moving out of the way, so they can flourish. And I think that's what we have to do, but it's also hard, and that kind of goes back to ego. We all want to maintain our position, our title, our rank. It feels good. It's hard to relinquish that, especially when it's tied to your identity. But I just think that we have to ask the questions that you had mentioned earlier, is that, am I serving this organization as best I could? Is there someone who could do it on par? And you're so right when you talk about, well, maybe that person's not quite ready yet. Sil, are you ready in any of the positions that you were placed in? Because I know I wasn't. I was like, okay, thanks for these 4 stars on my collar. I will go figure it out. And none of us, we can prepare the best that we possibly can, but none of us are truly ready because we don't know the job until we get into the chair. And so I think that we fall upon that as well, as they're just not ready, or the work still has to get done. So if you're the one making these excuses, listeners, if you are sitting in a position that you have held for a very long time in your organization and nobody has said anything to you, but you're thinking, I can't leave because this falls on me. I can't leave because the work isn't done. Maybe just rethink that. Because again, legacy is exactly that. Like, I love the idea of being able to walk out the door and trust that I don't even have to look back because it's in such good hands. That means you've done your job.
Yeah. So it kind of boils down to get constructive feedback. You're the best person I've ever met at receiving and providing feedback. Best ever, without a doubt. We need to replicate your courage in that space because you're amazing. So get constructive feedback. Also, to challenge and ask questions of your own self with a real clear lens, and the performance of you, your contributions, and the performance of your team or organization. I think all of those things help. No doubt, if anybody gets anything out of this, they know that really sitting in space, in kind of your own space where you do your very best thinking, and writing some of this stuff down, developing your agency, right? Cultivating increasingly more agency to be self-aware and control your destiny, and to be introspective. And if there's somebody that you haven't tapped for feedback that can give you real, honest feedback, set some psychologically safe space for them and go to them. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, I think that's so true. You have to be open to it. And it's funny what you had said earlier about, taking compliments and taking criticism. I am way better at taking criticism.
Me too.
And, think about how all the cops, it's like you give awards to cops, and I've heard so many cops say that they would rather receive an ash chewing than a commendation, right? Just for some reason, I am so much better at taking criticism than I am compliments. But I appreciate you saying that, but I fight for feedback. And I also try really hard not to take it personal, try to separate the work from the person. And so I've done a pretty good job at that. And I always just want to keep getting better. So I think my imposter syndrome kind of helps me, because I always feel like I have to earn it. And so I love it when people tell me, hey, here's how you can get better. I think the bottom line here, listeners, is leadership is not about how long you stay in your organization. It's about how you prepare others to lead without you. So I would say, before you dig, I want you to dig down to think and ask yourself, are you blocking someone else's growth? And are you staying because you love the work, or are you staying because you're afraid of what's next?
Well, fear is a
liar.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'll tell you, if you ever want to make Kristen Zeman uncomfortable, give her a compliment. Talk about her writing. Talk about, I don't know. It's actually quite fun to watch. But
I prefer you to tell me I have something in my teeth.
Well, shit, I got to wear. Nope, you're good. Here's the deal. This is a really important piece, because a lot of people struggle with this very same thing, or their organization struggle because the leader the person in a position of authority does not know that they need to go.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
hey, Kristen Zeman brought us a sports metaphor. She brought us a metaphor about the tree. Holy shit balls. This has been, write this day
I
down.
can't believe I just pulled that out of my ass. I've really been enjoying I've enjoyed the quarterback series. I don't know if you've watched it, but it's really taught me a lot about football. It turns out quarterbacks really have to do a lot.
Yeah, they do. And if you look at the Wonderlic test, they're typically the high performing quarterbacks have very high Wonderlic scores. Just saying, correlate.
Yeah, I just kind of used to think they were just like, football player bubbas, but oh my God, they're so smart and tactical. Anyway, I'm really into it. I may even join like a fantasy football league just so I can learn even more. I know you don't even recognize me right now. I don't know. It's just, I don't even know who I am. I'm going through a reinvention phase. So
Okay, I'll help you with your draft.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got
well,
you. All right.
listen.
So leaders, Kristen, thanks for that, because I think it's really, really important. And, I've been at a couple of organizations and I've had to think about what is right for the organization. Am I the best person for the job? Are we still advancing the organization? Are we still performing as we should perform? Do I have the energy, intellectual, physical endurance to keep doing the work? I've had to answer all those questions. And there are times where I've tapped out to provide the light, as you said. Or I just think there's a different way that the organization needs to go. It's not like, anyway, everybody's path is different. The urging is to listen to this, write down some intentions, and get yourself a tribe of people that will be your truth tellers. Because they'll let you know.
And you hit it on the head. Just ask yourself those questions and be very honest when you answer. I think that's the bottom line, is just make sure you're asking yourself the questions. So, hey, listen, everybody, if you like this podcast, please subscribe, like it, review it, tell everyone you know about it. You can follow us on Instagram. You can follow us on Facebook. And if you don't like it, move along. There's nothing more to see here. Ted Madden, who really isn't on administrative leave, I made that up. He's not actually being disciplined. He just had more important things to do today, like, his real job. He produces this podcast, and the song you're about to hear was written and performed exclusively for us by my son Jake Zeman and his friends Zoe and Fabian. Keep filling your own bunnies and make sure that you're adding substance to the people coming up behind you. Bye, everybody.
When you look inside, what do you find? Are you content to fall behind? When you lose your way and you've lost your why, have courage and get ready to fight the hollow bunny. When the way ahead is covered in smoke and you're tired and you're scared and you're losing hope, you'll open your heart and your eyes to see a challenge and a question. Why not me? To fight the hollow bunny. And we all feel hollow sometimes, but the monsters are only in your mind. It's a tough pill to swallow, but if you're brave and kind, you'll be alright. If you fight the hollow bunny. When the challenge ahead scares you to death, you tame the imposter inside instead. To change the world, you've got to start small. It takes a leader to say, I don't know it all, and I know I'm gonna fall, but I'll pick it up and come back stronger. Failing forward and moving onward, doing the hard thing and the right thing, forever fighting the hollow bunny. And we all feel hollow sometimes, but the monsters are only in your mind. It's a tough pill to swallow, but if you're brave and kind, you'll be alright. If you fight the hollow bunny. If you're tough on the outside but empty within, Something's gonna crack, you've gotta start again. You're tough on the outside, but empty within. Something's gonna crack, you've gotta start again. The hollow monster.